You're listening to the podcast for all of the news, notes, and breakdowns for your Ohio State Buckeyes. This is Sons of the Shoe with Nick Wilson and Spencer German.
The Sons of the Shoe rides again. Nick Wilson, Spencer German back with you. Hey guys, how you doing? A lot to talk about. Big news out of Columbus earlier today as we have a new starting quarterback, or an officially anointed starting quarterback. But as we are a new podcast, please make sure to subscribe to the Sons of the Shoe podcast wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify. Have I mentioned Apple? Also 923thefan.com and the free Odyssey app. Please also make sure to subscribe to the 92.3 The Fan YouTube channel and give us a follow there. Like our videos. We like to be liked, damn it. But Spencer, hi, how are you?
Good. Can't complain. I know we've missed each other the last couple weeks, at least specific to the show. But I tried to hold down the fort. That's the right word I'm looking for. Without you. And I actually thought, I don't know if you had a chance to listen back to last week's episode, but I thought the conversation I had with Alec Dietz from the Eugene, I knew I was going to forget, the USA Today paper out of Eugene was really good. He had some good stuff to say, I think, about just Oregon in general and sort of their expectations. And I think one of the big questions about them is like, is it going to be more of an adjustment for them to Big Ten football, or is it going to be more of an adjustment from Big Ten football to Oregon?
So I did listen. I thought Alec was amazing. And what's funny is, because you butchered one or two things there, every time I've tried to recall his name on air on Afternoon Drive on 92.3 The Fan, by the way, every time I've tried to remember Alec's name while promoting our podcast in live reads, I've stopped short because I keep going, is it Alec? Or is it Alex? And so for those of you who don't know how this works, when you are talking live on air and there is a kernel of self-doubt, when you have a truncated window to finish a read, it really ratchets up the pressure. So I can say your interview with Alec was fantastic, as was your reaction to that. The Harbaugh stuff was great. So really, really well done, and I appreciate you. It's so funny, dude. We're going into football season, and I thought I still had time to finish summer, and it didn't. No, it's done. It's done.
Just like that.
The personal life decided, you know what? Those 3 weeks you were going to use soaking up the sun and, playing with your rascals. No. That's gone now. And football Nick is here. And he's a unscrupulous son of a bitch that works too damn much, but here we are. And you mentioned it. The big news, I think I mentioned it. I teased it. The big news of the day, the kangaroo court is over. That's right. There is white smoke, or maybe silver and gray, or, scarlet and gray. Jesus, I'm doing a great job at this. Take two. There's scarlet and gray smoke billowing from the plumes at Ohio Stadium as there is a new pope at quarterback. Will Howard has officially been named the Buckeye starting quarterback. Devin Brown is QB2. Spencer, who would have guessed it? Who would have guessed the guy that everybody realized you paid a shit ton of money in NIL to come here from Kansas State? Who would have guessed that guy, who'd been the favorite the entire time, would end up actually being the Buckeye starting quarterback?
To quote Paul Rudd in that the interview he did on Hot Ones, not me.
Not me. Not us. Look at us.
Not us. We had no idea. Not us. Look at us. No, yeah, I think this was par for the course. And I texted with some people who covered the team regularly leading up to today's announcement. They were all saying they'd be shocked if it was anybody but Will Howard. And yeah, you brought him in here for a reason. And clearly, I think throughout camp and even during the spring game, there was moments that stood out about why he's the choice. I also think too, a lot of this, Nick, to me, it feels about just like trust level in certain moments, right? Like Will Howard is a proven quarterback in college at this point. I understand it was Kansas State, which isn't, the big wigs of college football in terms of competing for championships.
But Kansas State's been really good, and he was really good at Kansas State.
No, well, but that's what I mean though. Like he's had moments, he's been in those high stress situations, end of a game, need a comeback drive, all those different things, and the rest of that room just hasn't. I mean, even Devin Brown, who's been part of this program for several years now, he hasn't really experienced that. So I mean, I think that has to be like the biggest reason why you went and got him, and the biggest reason why he's your starter today and going into the season, just because you don't trust the other guys yet to live up to those or perform in those moments. And that's what the season is about for Ryan Day. It's about performing in the Michigan game and not feeling the stress of that moment. It's about being able to deliver in the college football playoff and go chase a championship. Like, you can't talk a big game about championship or bust like that program is doing and then have it fall short because, well, you have a freshman quarterback who's kind of learning on the fly as he goes. And that's no disrespect to those guys. I think they're going to be great quarterbacks. I just think they need more time. And so Howard was the obvious choice, and it makes a lot of sense for just where the state of the program going into this season. Yeah,
it's funny. Any which way they actually did lean, there was going to be cynicism about it. That's just the way this is. If you had said, all right, it's going to be one of the freshmen, people would be like, oh, this is an all-in season and you're going to go with a freshman as your starting quarterback. If you had gone with Devin Brown, people would have griped that you spent too much on a guy who's going to be your backup in Will Howard. But, Ryan Day called out his command of the huddle. And it's funny because Big Ten Media Days, a little bit, back in the rearview mirror, Ryan Day was not ready to announce a starter. Last week, Ryan Day was not ready to announce a starter. And then along the way, though, he talked about leadership, command of the huddle, command of the offense. And that all the breadcrumbs were leading to Will Howard. And it's funny, because any which way that they would have gone, there was going to be cynicism from somebody. I also think any which way that you had not gone, or any which way, even though we all knew within some realm of certainty, it was very likely to be Will Howard. I thought the reaction, if the reaction is, oh yeah, how anticlimactic, that's a funny reaction. But if your reaction is then to shit on Will Howard, that I don't understand. Because I think when you talk about walks like, looks like, acts like, face of your program quarterback, that is Will Howard. He is 6'5". He is 250. He is a very mobile quarterback, where that's going to really be great with Quinshon Judkins in the red zone. He does have a really good arm. And I think you start to add all those things together. It's so funny because people go, well, but Kansas State, he's never been on this level. Yeah, which means he's never played with this kind of talent. So this is a guy who is a very proficient quarterback, a very talented quarterback at Kansas State, and now you're plugging him into a supercharged machine where, you didn't need much more from Kyle McCord to win a national championship last year. Don't throw the first pick against Michigan. That's where the conversation starts. Or it's the little consistencies with a quarterback. So if he's even only marginally better than Kyle McCord, and you can add the legs component, I think that's more than enough to win a championship. And here's the thing. That's the bottom bar. The top of the bar is this dude has played a butt ton of football and catapults himself maybe into a top 60 pick in the NFL draft and outshines all expectations. And that's where you talk about maybe not just competing for a national championship, but maybe running away with one and truly being the best team in college football.
Yeah, I think you're right about it being a marginal difference in terms of what Ohio State needed last year at that position specifically to chase a championship. And I also think too, along those lines of how how much, what level of quarterback play is enough. We've seen for years, I understand at the NFL level, we talk about this all the time, quarterback is the most important. And I'm not saying quarterback doesn't matter in college, it does. But we've seen, just fine quarterbacks, like not your 5-star guy. Stetson Bennett is a perfect example of this. He won two championships back to back on the backs of having an absolutely loaded roster around him at Georgia, both on defense and on offense. Like that roster was loaded with talent across the board that helped kind of lift him. And listen, he did have to show up in certain moments. Like, it wasn't like he was making no plays out there, but that's, I think, what I sort of see with Will Howard is like a guy who can make those plays for you in those moments. He gives you the ability to run with the quarterback, which we know the complaints when CJ Stroud was here about Ryan Day not doing that enough. But now you come in, Chip Kelly taking over the play calling. His offense is very much based in that. And he's going to want to run the football with that position and with the running backs that they have, which is part of the reason why they got Quinshon Judkins to add him to the mix. So, yeah, like they clearly they have such a stacked roster around him, whether it's Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka and, the wide receiver talent, plus the running back room, all that, to kind of lift him, even if he isn't the world's greatest quarterback. And, I think there's other quarterbacks out there that they were interested in during the offseason. We know that. Cam Ward was one who I actually was the highest on. I know there were some talks about Riley Leonard, but he wanted to go to Notre Dame. So maybe it wasn't their first choice, even though they pitched it that way. But I still think he gives you enough to accomplish what you want to accomplish this year, especially with everything around him. And he kind of alluded to that too, Nick. I talked about it on last week's show. He had that quote in his media availability 2 weeks ago where he basically, or I guess last week, where he said, I feel like I don't have to do it all. And on some level, that's true. Like, the quarterback's always going to be looked at first when something goes wrong, or if in a big spot, like, you got to be the one stepping up and delivering in that moment. But that is made easier by the fact that you have so much talent around you to help raise that bar, or raise you to that next level and make those plays. And that's why we were, I think, so surprised last year that Kyle McCord struggled as much as he did in spots, because we thought, like, how does this guy lose with so much talent around him? And they did end up going undefeated up until the Michigan game, but still it was like, how can you possibly struggle this much with this much talent around you? We were stunned by it. And I think the difference now is, like, Will Howard has that, but he's also a better player.
Well, and here's the other thing with McCord. And I don't want to dump on the kid. He bailed on the program because I think he felt like he would have had to fight and sing for his supper, and there were other opportunities. That's totally okay. I think he was the weak spot last year. But I think the problem with Kyle is, I don't care what he looked like in game 1 last year. I went from game 1 to game 4. All right, is there discernible step forward, either in ease and comfort in the pocket, either in terms of consistently delivering the ball better, placing the ball better, just basic decision making, right? And then from game 4 to game 7, and then from game 7 to game 10. And the problem is that I never saw it. He looked the same to me in every game. All the shortcomings looked the same to me. And so it's funny, like, I know you can go out there, you're going to hang 70 on Akron, game 1, and then you're going to go, and then the next game. But like, what I'm looking for from Will Howard is, once you get 4 games in and the games start to count in Michigan State and Iowa, all right, as the competition gets better, I am going to want to see you get better. By the time you get to Oregon, October 12th, that might be the high water mark, maybe the most important game this season, even though you got Penn State, who's, I think, 8th, even though you got Michigan late in the season, who's ranked 9th. Well, that's preseason stuff. I know that Oregon is bona fide. That is a national championship contender. So, okay, after Oregon, do I see, because you've had to raise your bar going up against one of the elite talented teams in college football, do I see you continue to get better after that? And the thing that was rough about Kyle is he looked the same against Rutgers as he did against Penn State. Yeah. He looked the same against Notre Dame as he did, a team that was fighting and scratching and clawing to put 3 up or 7 up or 10 up on Ohio State, that had no business being in those kind of games. And that's where I think we're missing with Will. It's not just about where he starts, but can you see that consistent progression from him in his first year with all this talent around him?
Yeah, I mean, he's a veteran player too, so whether or not he has like a lot more to his ceiling, I guess remains to be seen. But I do think like different program, getting more comfortable with your players, like all that stuff matters in terms of seeing those improvements. And to your point, like think about CJ Stroud's development, right? Like that first game he played against Minnesota on a Thursday night, I think it was, he was okay. Second half was better than the first half, but you saw the progression of his game as the season went on to the point where we sat there by the time the Michigan game rolled around and we were like, this kid's legit. They have a chance to win this game against Michigan because he's so damn good. And I agree with you. Like that's what fans are going to be looking for from Will Howard as well as the season. It's kind of goes along with the philosophy of college football in general. You're not always going to be playing your best games at the beginning of the season. What do you look like? What you look like at week 12, week 13, conference championship weekend is what matters more than what you look like in the first, couple games of any given season. So that progression does matter.
So while we're talking about this, Will Howard being named the starting quarterback, Devin Brown is QB2 at least for that Akron game. We'll see if there's any kind of shuffling, if they give the freshmen a chance, whether in blowouts you see any of the young players. There is something, though, that I think we have missed on talking about this. And it is. I'm going to call it the Kyle McCord effect for how we think about Ohio State and the offense. We're going to get to that next, but first, a quick word from our sponsors. So, Spencer, I posed this idea of the Kyle McCord effect because I was thinking about it as we're talking about all of this. And what's wild to me is how in like 5 years, Ryan Day had built up this equity and his ability to pick quarterbacks and get the most out of quarterbacks, from Haskins to Fields to Stroud. And I think Stroud was the one because he wasn't as heralded as those first two prospects. And it's funny, man, like going into Kyle McCord and Devin Brown, that battle last year, I said to myself, like, well, by the way, did you start recording?
It's recording.
Okay, because I'm not seeing it moving. And I was like, this is good. Did
it freeze on you?
This is primo stuff that I'm laying down here. But going into that last year, one of the things that I think we all said was, hey, like, you got to trust Ryan Day. And what I think is so interesting is how, and a lot of this is because he didn't beat Michigan, that Ryan Day didn't beat Michigan and hasn't beaten Michigan in the last 3 tries. But it's so wild that Will Howard isn't getting the Ryan Day bump. That he's actually, it's the Kyle McCord effect that he's getting, hamstrung from, of instead of everyone looking like, all right, we got 3 quarterbacks out of 4 that were top 16 picks in the NFL draft, all prolific statistical quarterbacks, and you got one that just didn't work out like that. No, instead we're going the opposite direction, which is, yeah, I mean, how good can Will Howard really be? I don't know. And it's as if this guy, as if Ryan Day can't take this guy to another level on top of all the talent around him.
Yeah, it's a good point by you because, I here's what I equated to, though, because I think, and you know this, Ryan Day is such a touchy subject right now when it comes to just everything. Like, you mention his name and somebody who's an Ohio State fan that you're walking past is triggered to the point where they're like, oh, they got to fire that guy. Like, you could be talking about anything when it comes to Ryan Day. You could be like, oh, I met Ryan Day's dog the other day. He's a great dog. They got a great family dog at home. And people would be like, oh, they got to fire that guy and take the dog with them. Like,
I hate Australian Shepherds now.
Exactly. Like, it could be anything. And people are just ready to pounce on Ryan Day. And so that's where I think, because Ryan Day's lost to Michigan 3 straight years, because he doesn't yet have a national championship to tout as his big prize that on his resume of, hey, here's why I'm the right coach for this job. I think people are just looking for anything to critique him for. And so I think that's where the Kyle McCord thing comes into play, because they see this guy who, yeah, you had all these great quarterbacks before, but it's almost like the Bill Belichick, Tom Brady thing where they're like, well, did he really make those players, or were they just that good that they made him look good? And there's probably a little bit of give and take to that. Like, I do think those players are really good and made Ryan Day look better, but we're also talking about college players where it's like, these guys come in very, very raw, and he helped take them to that next level. And he, again, Justin Fields, Dwayne Haskins, he gets credit for those guys because even though that was under Urban Meyer, he was the quarterback coach. He was working very heavily in the offensive game plan. Like, he is the person who helped take those guys to the next level and help them get to the NFL and springboard their careers. So I think that should not be forgotten, but I understand it's such a touchy thing that people are just going to look and be like, well, look what he did with Kyle McCord. How good can he be? And I do think that's unfair. I'm expecting him to get a lot more out of Will Howard than Will Howard gave at Kansas State, or that Kansas State got out of him, I guess. And I think part of that, too, is the fact that he is going to be surrounded by a better team as well. That helps him take that, raise that game to another level on top of the teaching that Ryan Day kind of puts him through.
So what's interesting about what you just said is, in a way, I think Will Howard is going to prove either theory. If Will Howard is back in line with the C.J. Strouds, the Dwayne Haskins, the Justin Fields, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see people go, oh, he is that guy. He is, he is the alpha and the omega.
Yeah.
And if he's more in line with Kyle McCord, I mean, that might be the end of him in Columbus, which is wild. And actually, I'll go one step further. Either way, Will Howard could be the end of Ryan Day in Columbus. Because if he's Kyle McCord, there is going to be, I don't know that they'll pull it off, but there are going to be petulant Ohio State boosters who start stomping around like baby hippopotamuses and want their way and want an upgrade. And okay, they've got the power. I don't have that power. And then on the other hand, like, I'll be honest with you, I thought Jim Harbaugh was going to leave Michigan at some point as soon as they messed with his money back leading into that first season that he beat Ohio State.
Yeah.
Because he was a prideful guy. He is a football guy. He is a Michigan man. And quite frankly, other Michigan people used good, not great football to treat him like crap. And so I don't think Jim ever forgot that. And so in a way, Jim gets it all. Jim beats Ohio State 3 straight times. You see that jump in that program to a top 10 program each one of those years. And then he walks off with a mic drop that says, no matter how much you pay me, F you, I haven't forgot. I'm going to go back to the NFL after winning a national championship, which we haven't done in 27 years. So the reason why I think that's important is I know they're not the same guy, but would it surprise me if Will Howard is that next step, that next great player, and all of a sudden Will Howard's a top 15, top 20, top 30 pick. Ryan Day wins a national championship, and Ryan Day goes, well, look at my record. Look at what I did this last year. All right, somebody's going to come with a $100 million offer from the NFL. I've proved my Ohio State worthiness. I can get any job I want if I don't work out in the NFL. I'll see you later. Like, I think it's interesting a year later, if this goes right with Will Howard, we could be talking about that same playbook, that same card being played by Ryan Day.
Well, and I also think, too, because there are some people who are still have their doubts about Will Howard and how good he really is. Like, again, I mentioned some of the names of guys that they were also interested in, Riley Leonard, Cam Ward, and they missed out on those guys. Like, if he has a really good season, they're going to have, like, the people who are sitting here saying, like, well, I don't know about Will Howard. If he turns Will Howard into like a bona fide, I mean, maybe I don't know that he'll necessarily turn him into a number one or a first round pick in 1 year. But if he turns him into like a quarterback that's getting a lot of buzz at the next level and they win that national championship and all that, people are going to have to admit finally, like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing with quarterbacks. He had one bad egg among the group, but it just didn't work out with Kyle McCord. And that's that, on top of giving him credit for whatever else he accomplishes this season. But you are right. Like, he is putting his faith in Will Howard to basically save his job. Because if Will Howard plays great, well, and here's the thing, Will Howard could play great, Justin Fields, CJ Stroud and they could lose to Michigan and he still might be out of a job for all we know. but he at least will go out proving the thing that we all have said about him, which is he's a great offensive mind. He can get the most out of quarterbacks, and that's worth something. But yeah, if Will Howard plays poorly, we know that what that probably means for him and his job security, and he's probably looking for a job elsewhere, whether it's the NFL or somewhere else in college next year. So yeah, I mean, this is the guy he's put his eggs in the basket with, and he's got to kind of ride it out now. And obviously, we're all hoping that he proves to be that coach that boosts and lifts quarterbacks, and that the Kyle McCord thing was just a one-off.
And don't forget, Ryan Day's name has been mentioned in NFL circles. Ryan Day has experience as an assistant under Chip Kelly. I want to say it's 2 or 3 years in the NFL. So he's got recent, within the last decade, experience. But I just think, to kind of draw a big picture here, I don't know any coach in America that I can say, if this goes poorly, because you didn't win a national championship, but maybe you won 11 games, you're going to get fired. And if this goes well, you're going to have your pick of jobs in the NFL, and someone might look at you and go, hey, I'm going to take your quarterback 1, 3, 5, 10. Why don't you come here and coach him and get more out of him? Like, I don't know of a coach with those kind of standards that if he wins a national championship could have any job in college, is obvious, but could have a pick of a slew of good jobs in the NFL, including Philadelphia, by the way, including Dallas, by the way. And if it doesn't work out, which means winning 11 games, he could be fired. Like, that's,
yeah,
that just kind of try to put that in perspective, just kind of blows my mind a little bit.
Yeah, and that was something I talked about several episodes ago, just with the pressure meter on, I think, all these, different coaches around the sport. I think that Marcus Freeman's probably up there from Notre Dame. I think Kalen DeBoer's up there for pressure, just because you're following Nick Saban. He's not in danger of getting fired year one, but there's always going to be an expectation when you follow that guy to keep the program at a certain level, and if you don't, well, you lose year one, people will lose their patience pretty quickly going into year two. But I do think Ryan Day has the most pressure on him, and the situation kind of calls for that because, again, like you said, like everything that's at stake for him, and he has to now prove that the Will Howard move was the right one and get the most out of that guy to take his team to that level.
And I think what's interesting is now, what does this also mean for the other quarterbacks?
Yeah.
Devin Brown being named number 2 quarterback doesn't really mean anything. I think it's something we see a lot of. Guy loses the starting job, loses the quarterback battle, and immediately transfers out. Now, Devin's talked a big game on this. I'm not sure that that's what I expect, but the more I thought about it, listen, it's good to have an experienced backup, so that's a good place to start from. And I also wonder if you're Ohio State, is there any part of you that's like, it wouldn't be the worst thing if you had to bump Keenholz or one of the 2 freshmen up the depth chart if Devin Brown did peace out? Like, from that standpoint, it does feel like there's a no-lose situation, provided Will Howard stays healthy this year.
Yeah, Devin Brown is interesting because he kind of feels like that old school breed of player who's like, I committed to you, I'm not quitting no matter what, and he's said as much. But you also got to wonder at some point, like he has to look around and realize, I've been passed over now multiple times in multiple years. I was a top recruit coming out of high school. I want at least a shot to start somewhere. And maybe it's like, maybe his path is, maybe his path is he has a chance to win a national championship this year and be a part of something great. So he sticks around. And then next year he's like, all right, I got my ring, or, we came close. I'm going to go somewhere else. Because like even next year, like I'm already envisioning, I'm not trying to look too far ahead because I do want to enjoy this season, but I'm already envisioning next year being like the summer of Julian Sayin versus Aaron Nolan, right? Like that's going to be the thing we're talking about, assuming they both stick around, where those 2 guys are duking it out for the starting job. And if that happens, then like, where does that leave Devin Brown yet again? Like he could get passed over yet again. So I give him a lot of credit for being, willing to, be told over and over again that, hey, there's just somebody who's just a little bit better than you. So you're going to be our number 2 quarterback. He deserves a lot of credit, though, for sticking it out and being committed to the program. But I do wonder what it means for him specifically. I think the other guys, especially the two freshmen, it feels like this is a situation where they just kind of wait it out and then next year see who wins and then somebody transfers out. But, I mean, they seem to at least have some faith in, again, the conversation we just had about Ryan Day developing quarterbacks. So I would imagine they probably want to see what they can get out of it before they just completely peace out. But maybe one of them leaves after the season. We'll see. But, yeah, I think Devin Brown's the one that I could see leaving before the season or entering the portal at some point here just to be done with it. But I also get the sense that that's just not him. So it's kind of an interesting question when it comes to Devin specifically.
I see the freshman. I would not surprise me if either one of them, whether it's Bill O'Brien in Boston College, which feels
that would be saying
that,
going there because he had the right.
But I mean, Aaron Nolan, the Buckeyes had to fight to keep Aaron Nolan in the class, and so
the only thing I'll say about that though is it seemed like he seems to have a really good relationship with Day because all the pictures and videos and stuff, it was always Day visiting. So, but the Saiyan one makes some sense because obviously he went to Bama when Bill O'Brien was there. But yeah, I mean, either one of these guys could ultimately be like, yeah, I'm out.
Everybody has a great relationship with a coach until they're the fifth string quarterback. And which, by the way, the fifth string quarterback at Ohio State seems to be better than the first string quarterback at most major colleges. But again, there is the ego factor here. There is people in your ear saying, oh, I can get you money if you go over here.
Yeah.
There's just so many things these young guys are going through now that I just don't – I think those are the pressure points that make a lot more sense than a guy in Devin Brown who has said, you know what, I'm here to fight. And with Devin Brown, he's one injury away from having his chance. You can sell yourself on that, whereas if you're either one of the young quarterbacks, any one of those three guys that's like, wait, so I got to wait for – Howard to get injured, and then Devin Brown, and then maybe Lincoln Kienholz. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you're right. And that kind of goes back to, again, like why people go to Ohio State. The NIL stuff that they've now started investing in more is obviously a huge part of that. But we've had, lengthy conversations on this show about the idea that when you commit to Ohio State, it's about more than just the NIL stuff. And I'm not saying they should just be like, well, we recruit off of reputation alone, because that's not going to get you very far in today's day and age. But the combination of the NIL stuff plus the fact that you get sold on this idea that at Ohio State, they're going to turn you into an NFL player and an NFL prospect and get you ready for that level, that stuff does matter to these recruits. And so I do think there's guys who come along. Devin Brown's a perfect example of this, who are like, I want to see this thing through, which is why, I of the two freshmen, I think Nolan is kind of more of that ilk in terms of what he's said and what we've seen so far from him. But again, maybe he would be the one that dips and that pays the way for saying next year. But it'll be fascinating to see if it has any impact. But I also think too, again, they understand what they signed up for when they came to Ohio State. I also think they understand when the team went and got Will Howard, what they were signing up for to an extent as well. And they stuck it out through the spring to this point, so hopefully they follow suit here in the fall.
All right, guys, we've got one more segment to go. 4 Down Territory leads off with preseason polls. You know it, you love it, but first, a quick word from our sponsor. One segment to go. This is the last one. As always, please make sure to follow the show wherever you get your podcast, Sons of the Shoe. We appreciate you guys. 92.3 The Fan YouTube channel as well. We'll have more on that. But we start with 4 Down Territory. And first down here, the AP preseason poll is out. It matters literally nothing, but we still talk about it. And Georgia's number 1, Ohio State's number 2, Oregon's 3, and the big kicker, 4 Big Ten teams in the top 10. I don't really think there's a lot of scandal with the top 3 teams, but you could rank Oregon 1 and I'd get it. You could rank Georgia 1 and Ohio State 3 and I'd get it. You could jumble those 3 teams up, and honestly, there's 1 or 2 teams maybe behind them that you could jumble up, and I'd be like, okay, I get it. I think the 2 best teams, talent-wise, are Ohio State and Georgia, but there is a lot of talent at the top, which makes Ohio State's path to a national title a little bit tougher this year.
Yeah, no scandal. I think the big thing for me is you see Ohio State and Oregon come in back-to-back 2 and 3, and I this is just adding more fuel to the fire for that game on October 12th. Like, that is the pen. We know the Michigan game is the Michigan game, obviously, but the rest of the schedule, that is like the penultimate game on both teams' schedule this year. You know, new kids on the block in Oregon. Can they hang with a team like Ohio State? Ohio State and all the pressures coming with it for Ryan Day. And so to see those two teams back to back in the top 3, 2 and 3, and it's like, hey, you know, whoever wins that game could get catapulted to 1, depending on, I don't know, Georgia's schedule off the top of my head. I know they have some tough games early in the season, but like, yeah, that to me, this was just like the latest, you know, I guess match that's lit to add to the fire of like why that game is going to be so massive. And I'm assuming both teams are going to get theirs and still be undefeated at that point in the season. We'll see. But yeah, it sets the stage for that game for sure.
I do think, I mean, one of the things that I want, and this is where my tunnel vision on Big Ten football is probably different than how the Big Ten has to think about it. I desperately want every inclusion into the Big Ten going forward to not just put you on par, continue to put you on par with the SEC in terms of football powerhouses, but to take you over the map. You know, when we've talked about ACC and rating the ACC, I want Clemson, I want Florida State, I want Miami, I want, you know, and listen, I want North Carolina, which is just a great brand, if not a great football brand, but I want Virginia Tech. Like, I want the Big Ten to be what I don't know a lot of other fans want to be, which is a gauntlet. So Ohio State, Oregon, you know, 4 Big Ten teams in the top 10. I think that does resonate for me as a Big Ten fan and somebody who, like, I want to be able to say we got the best football, basketball, every single program, and I think Oregon's going to bring a lot to this.
Yeah.
But again, let's not sleep on the other teams in the top 10. That's 4 top 10 teams is awesome.
I'll just say real quick that Oregon being in the top 10 and especially being top 3 is huge. Like, first year in the conference, and this is what you signed up for, right? Like, this is what you expanded for, to bring more prominence to the conference, and to say, people always made fun of the soft Big Ten schedule and you don't play anybody when Ohio State would get in and all these different things. Okay, well, now you added some big boys. USC is also in the top 25 this year. Like, this is kind of – it's a good start for this new iteration of the Big Ten to have them ranked so highly and see 2 Big Ten teams near the top like that.
You're also coming off a year where Oregon was one of the 2 best teams in a absolutely loaded Pac-12. Like, the Pac-12 went out on a high note with how good the football was last year. I think that adds some intrigue here as well. Moving to second down on our 4-down territory. I don't even know which Deion Sanders comment we're going to play about him blowing up a reporter as the Buffalo's head coach, who has taken a different tact this offseason as the media has been more critical about the culture in that he's kind of provided there. Which one is this? Which one of the run-ins?
This is the CBS one.
Okay.
The guy from CBS Denver. And so we have the clip for you.
We've got the audio here of Deion engaging in what is honestly a ridiculous but pretty predictable patter with one local reporter.
That's the end of that question, I guess. Next guy.
Eric Christensen with CBS Sports Colorado.
CBS,
Tyler,
I'm not doing nothing with CBS. Next question.
Joe Rigo, Mile High
Ain't got nothing
Sports
to do
Radio.
with you. This is above that. Ain't got nothing to do with you. I got love for you. I appreciate you, respect you. Ain't got nothing to do with you. They know what they did.
I'm here in Denver, not national.
You are who you are. CBS is CBS.
All right.
Joe
Ain't got
Rigo, Mile
nothing
High
to do with
Sports.
you. I respect you. That's why I told you that. I'm looking you in the eye as a man. I respect you. I got love for you. But what they did was foul.
So
I think it's funny that he said, it's got nothing to do with you, nothing personal. I respect you. And then he's like, well, I'm with Denver, not national. And he's like, well, you are who you are. It's like, you just said it's not about him, but then you said you are who you are. Like,
We had a good debate about this, me and my friend group, about whether he's actually that stupid to not be able to distinguish CBS Denver and CBS Sports National,
Right.
or whether he's just being a dick on purpose.
I think he's just being a dick on purpose.
But it totally, like, from now on, this is a new tactic of, like, when I don't, like, want to, like, get along with people, I'm just going to be like, you know who you are. But, like, I got nothing but love for you. I respect you. I wish you well, but I'm not going to do anything to help you. I'm actively going to make your job a little bit tougher.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Like, on one hand, there's a part of me that I call him dumb. I do think Deion's very smart. And this might be a way of stealing some of that attention about a culture that's permissive of gunplay and bullying, and so to make it about himself. On the other hand, this is the kind of stuff that turns really quickly. And, you and I, we've had a lot of different conversations, a night at you through the fan on here, and people are obsessed with relevance and it's not just recent, but in the last 20 to 25 years, everyone's become some sort of clout chaser, right? And what people don't understand is that not all relevance is good. And I understand that, no press is bad press. In 2024, it is. And a year ago, you had the all-time fundraising going on because Deion ignited that program, and that, they started out with such a strong, and they were on, Boulder was the backdrop of so many game day exposés and all this stuff. And that's great when it's going well. But the problem is that same guy has used that to then, you don't talk bad about me because that's not helpful to me. That's not how this goes. You have to speak you have to speak for things even when your program looks bad. And I think Deion's being exposed as a big fish in a big pond. He looks great when he's a big fish in a little pond. But now that he's swimming in big waters, that pressure's real. And I'll tell you, what gets people fired quicker than anything is making boosters uncomfortable. And you can't tell me the never-ending stream of negative stories, the negative exposés, which Deion could absolutely help curb by not treating reporters like shit and giving them some insight and saying, I understand how things look because of people who've left the program. Here's how we look. He could totally but he's trying to do this sleight of hand thing. And it's not smart. It would not surprise me. I'm going to say this right now because I want this back there. It would not surprise me if Deion did not make it to year 3. Maybe the contract's too much to get him fired.
But I think Colorado made that money back like twofold, like just last year alone with everything that was going on. Like I'd like to see the books on like how much he brought in just last year. Like they might have made enough money to like pay him off already. Who knows? And maybe year 2,
he better win.
Yeah. Well, that's
8, 9, 10 games this year.
Yeah. Well, and that's the key thing, right? Like even his first year at Jackson State wasn't great, but year 2, the next like 3 years he was there, he lost like 3 games the whole time he was there. Like it was this big step forward. Now you're trying to do that in a Power 5 conference and all that. So it's a different beast, but I guess it's not the Power 5 anymore. It's the Power 4. But yeah, I think to me, like this is a sign of Deion cracking a little bit. And it's interesting because on some level, I love Deion being Deion. And so I get him doing this as kind of like funny, and it's like, just Deion being Deion. He's going to do things his way. And I don't think he cares about what boosters have to say. Like he's never been that guy that cares about what anybody thinks. So, but on the same level, like you can't be the guy that doesn't care about what anybody thinks and then be holding it over a reporter's head that the national that they're connected with wrote something about them not being a very good coach. Okay, well, if you don't take stuff personal, why does it bother you so much? Why are you holding it against this guy who you also said you respect? So it was just a weird exchange, that entire press conference, because there was more. There was more to it. Like he wasn't answering any questions that day. And it's kind of like fear tactics too for the people on the beat. Like, if you don't bow to my whim and worship me and write good stuff about me, I'm just going to bully you in a press conference. And that makes it a very uncomfortable beat. But it also, like, if he thinks that's going to get people on his side, it's not. Like, that's just going to make people want to dig more into the problems with that program and the gun culture that we've heard some stuff about and all these different things. Like, that's not going to make people want to, like, write good about you unless, again, like you said, Nick, they're winning football games. So we'll see. if they come out and they have a good season and they at least, they get to a bowl game next year, then maybe he can talk his talk and he can back this thing up. But the way things are looking, and especially since he's talked about his recruiting tactics and what they didn't necessarily do this offseason to improve the team, it's not looking like a team that's going to be winning a lot of games. And so this stuff is going to get thrown back in his face.
Well, and equally outrageous in all this is the sycophants in the Boulder and the Colorado Buffalo media who have kissed this dude's ass and who have bought into his tactic. There was a couple TV reporters that have done if you don't like it, you can get out, which is not like that. Your job is not to be a fanboy. You can go to Colorado, by the way. You can go to Colorado, be a reporter in Boulder, and you still have to have I have no ethics when it comes to journalism. I'm a loud asshole, all right? And I have more journalistic integrity than some of these buffoons, and they didn't get called out because at least one of them was a very attractive woman, and I digress. Now, with that being said, journalistic integrity. I said it. Now, with that being said, third down on our 4-down territory, the big story, I know you reacted to this last week, Pitbull buying the naming rights to FIU Stadium. I
don't even need to talk on this one, really. I want to know, I need Nick's reaction to this because this is one of the best stories in college football of the last, of the summer. And there's a follow-up question that I have too. But I want to hear your stance on it first, and then I'll ask my question.
All right, so $1.2 million per season feels remarkably low because you just know Pitbull is going to use that stadium in ways it ain't been used in decades. Like what was it with 10 or 11 private parties he was allowed at the stadium? Guys,
the hotel, motel, Holiday Inn. He's just bringing everybody back to FIU Stadium.
I might be from Ohio, but I know an orgy when I hear it. Okay, oh my God,
in the suite.
Somebody drew white lines all over the field. Actually, not talcum powder. No, that's pure Colombian Bam Bam and stripper juices. That's what that's going to be. It's wild. And by the way, I think it's brilliant for Pitbull. I think it's
brilliant for FIU.
I think it's brilliant for FIU. But let's just be honest about what's going to be happening in that stadium. Someone's getting it hard at the 50-yard line, and you're gonna be like, oh, that's where Tony Jones scored a 92-yard touchdown, and that's where Pitbull knocked up 2 strippers with 1 shot at the 50-yard line.
The best is gonna be when they're bringing in recruits the next day, and they're showing in the stadium, and there's some stripper who's searching for their bra down in the stands, trying to make their. Have you guys seen my clothes?
Yeah,
and they're gonna think it's like a Rick Pitino situation going on. Oh, guess I gotta go to FIU.
No,
okay.
Guys, she belongs to Pitbull. I also love the idea that Pitbull associated acts are going to perform at halftime and pregame. Which, by the way, it's going to be the hottest strip show any 10-year-old has ever seen. There's going to be 3 10-year-old FIU super fans who become men in the stands watching some Miami 10 strip to ZZ Top at halftime. And to be 10 years old and an FIU fan, I've never been more jealous of 10-year-old boys.
I saw first time I went to a Buffalo Bills game, I saw some girls got on top of a bus. And they,
no. We need to clearly define the relationship here. I'm the filthy one. You saying does not work for me. It's like Mr. Rogers saying boobies. All right, I can't. You're too clean cut.
I'm gonna start wearing a red sweater for these shows.
Yeah, well, but not a Cosby sweater. All right, because that's a different message you're sending.
Then it's gonna be a little role reversal here. You won't be the filthy one anymore.
Can you give me credit? Can you give me credit that I am one of the most open-minded hosts in sports talk radio? I'm always willing to listen, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm saying this, there has to be some sort of meaning, okay? I ban you from saying the word ever in my presence again. It's like my nephew just said tits to me, kid. And by the way, you're 5 years younger than me. I know that, but you're Mr. Clean Cut. I'm the hairy, scuzzy one. I'm the
Next
one
time
that
I do the
uses
show
T
by
word.
myself, I'm just going to slip some in randomly, just so that when you listen, you can pound the table. No.
What am I
No,
doing to the table?
I know where you're going with. No, this is not. I'm not talking about Pitbull having strippers at the stadium. Okay, it's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about being mad that I use the word when you're not on the show.
Jesus,
I break a lot of rules when you're not on the show.
Can you
though,
just
so
say
it's fun.
boobies? All right. Can we talk about female
5
anatomy?
years old saying boobies?
Yes, because you should be calling them boobies. All
Okay,
right?
so
if you want to get clinical, you want to call them breasts, call them breasts. But you saying the T word every time you say it, I cringe a little bit. I curdle a little bit.
So my question real quick here. If with Ohio State contemplating selling the name rights to stadium, who is like the artist or just celebrity in general that you think would be worthy of putting their name on Ohio Stadium?
Pitbull. No. Don't mess with a good thing. All right. I'm just going to tell you, like Luke Combs, right? Give me a country artist.
So I said the first thing I said was like Pitbull for FIU is like, okay, he's like local artist. So I tried to come up with like a local band or artist from Columbus. Rascal Flatts is like the one I could come up with. But Rascal Flatts is like people love him, people hate him. It's kind of, there's like, eh. And then I said like, I don't know, like the Black Key. But I was like, the Black Keys aren't on the Columbus thing. So then I just said, well, the only celebrity that really makes sense is LeBron James because he's always just touting Ohio State, even though, but it would but he's not like an artist. The only other one I said was anybody that could get Taylor Swift's name on their stadium would do it in a heartbeat. Now they would need her more than she needs them, but if you could get Taylor Swift on there and like she's coming to your games and she's performing concerts at your stadium, that's the money grab that everybody wants in the NIL era.
Listen, everybody you mentioned are bigger stars than Pitbull.
You just want Pitbull. You just want Pitbull and a nice line. That's all you want. Pitbull and a nice line.
All right, to 4 down territory. So this
Last one.
You're out of order. This whole court is out of order. I hold you in contempt. And nope. Not going to do it. So one line from Ryan Day talking about the quarterback situation today for 4th down is that he said this time last year he thought Devin Brown was going to be the starter. Yeah. And then he said Kyle McCord finished the 2023 preseason camp strong, won the locker room over, and won the starting job over Devin Brown, and which really just made it seem like an episode of The Bachelor.
Can I just say he's full of shit, by the way?
You
because
may.
they played 2 games where they were rotating quarterbacks until he officially named Kyle McCord the starter. So how can you tell me by the end of camp we knew it was Kyle McCord, but let's just let him duke it out for a couple more weeks before we choose a starting quarterback.
By the way, what a kick in the balls if you're Devin Brown.
Yeah,
not only did you not win the starting job this year, it was your job last year.
And then you lost it.
But no, Kyle he won over the locker room.
By week 3.
Did he have Pitbull bring some of those opening acts out to the...
No, what it really probably was he was boys with Marvin Harrison, and they were like, well, we want to make Marvin Harrison Jr. happy, so let's just make it Kyle.
So the locker room is Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Find yourself a friend like Marvin Harrison Jr. because in Hard Knocks, the Giants tried really hard to get Marvin Harrison Jr. to say one bad thing about Kyle McCord when they were watching that tape of that game. They said, that was a shit pass, which is what Ohio State fans were saying the entire season about Kyle McCord. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. very wholesomely with his praying hands was just like, oh, no, quarterback. I love my quarterbacks. They're fine. I'm never going to say anything to them. If anything, it's my fault. I need to run a better route for him. No, Marvin Harrison Jr., it was not your fault. That quarterback was shit, and he was probably only starting because you guys were boys and you had his back. Let's be real here.
Let's just call a spade a spade. I watched that episode. That wide receiver coach, he didn't try hard enough. I could have broken. Listen, 1 or 2 things. You get me in a room with Marvin for 30 minutes watching film, breaking down. And here's the thing. We're going to cut it out. We're just going to play rapid fire. What was that? was that? And then I'm gonna be like, who was that? Who was that? And then I'm gonna be like Tom Cruise in I almost said Goodfellas.
Which Mission Impossible?
No, Tom Cruise in A Few Good Men, and Marvin Harrison
movies.
Jr. is going to be Jack Nicholson. And
you want the truth?
You want the truth? You can't handle the truth. Yeah, here's the truth. Kyle McCord effing sucks. And it'd be like, you're goddamn right he does. I'd get a Christian man to take the Lord's name in vain and say that Kyle McCord, his best friend, sucks. I could get that done in 30 minutes.
I wonder how much of him not saying. I part of me wonders if they could have played like hey, listen, okay, for that part of the conversation, we told you the Hard Knocks cameras are rolling. Walk over, push the button. All right, we're turning off the cameras now. No cameras, just you and I, just us in this room talking. Now tell me, is Kyle McCord a good quarterback? And see what he actually said. No, that's the next move they should have made.
That's too much finesse. You just got to go at him. He's 21.
He wants to admit it. He's like Colonel Jessup. He wants to admit that he ordered the code red.
Yeah, he needs to admit it. He wants you to know. He just needs you to lead him there. That's what leaders do. They browbeat people until they blurt out their innermost feelings on national TV and completely dog their best friend and former starting quarterback. By the way, does your wife know you use the T word?
Yeah, I've used it around her before.
Does she wince like I wince? Is she there? Can we get her on here? I want to know her stance
Guest
on
appearance.
You saying that word. Because it's like wrinkling my brain just a little bit. And please don't say it again. Please. I will end the podcast. We're not doing that. But it's not good. It's not good. We just got to find a middle ground on this. I'll hear boobies. If you want to get clinical,
I can't go as low as boobies. That sounds like my 2-year-old trying to he learns the word boobs for the first time and he was running around the house saying boobies. That's what it sounds like.
What about breasts?
That's
clinical.
better, I guess. That's a little more mature.
What about Hooters? Hooters is so much less.
You think Hooters is worth? Do you think that's better than tits? What?
It's just so. It's like blunt force trauma. Hooters is kind of whimsical. Like TITS. I don't even want to say it anymore. You've ruined the word for me because you're just so white bread, and now you're just throwing. It's like me and you are sharing a kilo out here, and we're just talking about previous conquests. That's what it feels like we're at. It's me and a bunch of Wall Street bros and Spencer German just snorting half a Colombian and talking about Tetons.
I don't know what to say after this. I don't want to make you squirm again by saying the word.
Yeah. All right. Guys, follow the podcast. Wherever you get your podcast. Apple, Spotify, 92.3 The Fan, the free audio. Just follow the podcast.
This episode might end up on Pornhub for all we know. Who knows? A lot of mention of female body parts.
Yep. You have permission to use Hooters, breasts, Yabos, honka honka.
Yabos is a good one. I like that.
Like it's anything but that other word. Spencer, up until that word, this is a great podcast. We will be back next week. We're getting closer and closer to the college football season. So please make sure to follow Sons of the Shoe wherever you get your podcast, guys. 92.3 The Fans YouTube channel as well. Please search us up, like our videos, in the comments.
You know what we're going to get? Elon's Twitter is just filled with, hey, nudes in bio. That'll be all we get. So,
hey, listen, as far as I know, every one of those tweets counts as interaction. All right? And here's the thing. Sometimes you go to the mentions just to see them. Just to see. Again, I've been out of the game forever. You just got to know what's out there in the ether, right? All right, buddy. Be good.
Talk to you later, Nick. Go Bucks.
This episode was this. Go Bucks.